Hey guys, good morning. Thanks for joining this session. Let me share my screen for a real quick minute and we will discuss what are we going to do. So this is my GitHub repository. Let's spend 2 minutes time on this one. That's my GitHub repository. And the series, Minimal API series is in this. So all the minimal API stuff will be here in this link wherever I sent it. Okay, so take a look at that, and I will take sessions or queries at the last because I'm the only guy in the uh, channel. So okay, so right now we will be discussing these things. This is second session of 9 sessions. So here is what this 9 sessions. Last session one we did these topics, and today is session two, and session 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 7, 8, and 9, and future sessions will also come all the way. We will create, it's a microservice series. It's not that minimal API. So that means we will start with minimal API, we'll deploy in app service, then we go and deploy in containers world, Kubernetes. A lot of things will come. So throughout this year 2023, we'll be learning about this microservice. Different microservice will come, UI will come. We'll have oscillate or any kind of API gateway and identity system. A lot of things are going to come. So let's do 2 episodes minimum every month, so that we'll be able to do that. Let's take time. Let's learn. There's no rush. So that's the context. So this is the meetup group, folks. So please register so that you'll get notified. And .NET Learners House. This is the channel where we have 26 plus videos already there, and currently this is the one which is there. So you can go and watch the session 1 video, which is this one, and today is this session 2. Okay, let's get starting. What are we going to do today? So as I was mentioning, the content, the README is here for today's session, and the source code, you click on this link here, it will take you to the organization. This is an organization, and under that organization we are starting with services school. It's for the courses, and then we'll have identity, we'll have client, then we'll have SQL project. Some other microservices will come in. So each will have its own repository, its own build pipeline, CI/CD, everything. So that's the full-blown microservice we'll be developing for this rest of the year 2023. We'll see how many things we can bring into this microservices, but this is the start. Okay, so let's take it real slow. And I was mentioning, I'm still a learner. Apologize if I do any mistake, and we'll have a parking lots. If I'm unable to answer any query, I will get back to you. I'll go learn and come back to you. So what are we going to do today is tour of minimal API projects. There were 2 projects. Let's do a quick tour, and then we'll see the dependency injection and comparison. So people are saying like minimal API, minimal API, minimal API, and we are writing everything in one file, program.cs. Is that what it is making minimal API? I don't know. I have my own thoughts. I will put that in front of you. That's the bulleted points 2 and 3. I'll do a comparison and I'll give my thoughts why it is called as minimal API, why it is faster than regular API. We'll see that. I might be wrong, but that's what I think from my side. Uh, and we'll do a parameter binding deep dive, and we'll see the base entity and course entity inheriting. What is the advantage of base entity? Just enough entity framework. We'll do an entity framework in memory, at least until we add uh, all the CRUD operations. Then we will migrate that to the SQL server, and we'll freeze this minimal API. Then we go and create a full-blown API for student and enrollments, and we'll have the UI, and we'll connect. Then we'll have microservice to microservice communication. A lot of things are going to come, but I don't want to derail the current session. So we'll do dependency injection of DbContext. We are not going to discuss anything deeper than that because I am parking it for the next session. I wanted to show you that one also, why I'm not touching the dependency injection at this point of time, because that is what I am preserving for the next session. Session 3, we'll do a deep dive. What is dependency injection? What is inversion of control? We'll see that, and we'll do a deep dive, how it happens and everything. We'll do a deep dive, and then we'll do write GetAllCourses API, and it's an in-memory. We don't have content. So then we'll do a seed data, and we'll update the Postman collection. So we have a lot of things to do. So let's hit the road. Please fasten your seatbelt. Let's travel the journey. So first, let's do a tour of .NET 7 minimal API project. I think we have all those projects here. Okay, the first sample and the second sample. Okay, so let me go to this location in the file explorer. This was the thing which we did it in our session 1. I think let me go and open 3 and 4, third sample. I'll open this. And I will open the fourth sample. And I will tell that what is the template which we. So let's give it a minute. Okay. Slide, 2 samples which we created using Visual Studio 2022. Okay, so these are those 2. Okay, let me pin this for a moment so that we can do a quick comparison between sample 3 and sample 4. That's a sample 3 and this is sample 4. You can see that from the dependencies perspective, you see that here this was an empty template. Here we have framework, and that framework, the same 2 packages are there, the meta packages, I assume, because that package is coming with a bunch of other packages. So these 2 frameworks are there. And apart from that, the one which we selected with the web API, this is an empty web project, and this is a web API with minimal API. apart from that, if you see that by default in the CS proj, it's .NET 7 nullable and enable implicit using. Those three are there. And we also saw that where this implicit using will come when we go into the bin, when we go to the debug. In .NET 7, we should have the global usings. So these are the global usings. So when you say that implicit usings, that means these global usings will be here. And that is the reason our files, the controllers or whatever the files are there, that will be not having many of those. So we saw what is the difference in the project. So when we select it, by default, we have selected the Open API. That is the reason Swashbuckle as well as the Open API, two additional references are there from the dependencies perspective. The first we saw what is CS Proj, then the dependencies, we see the framework in both. And the template which we have chosen here was Web API template with minimal API. It has got two additional references. And if we quickly walk through the launch settings template, in both, in the launch, these are the fundamentals, guys. Then we can go faster. Okay, so you can see that the profiles are being marked here. So HTTP profile, HTTPS, and IIS Express, and you can see that same HTTP, HTTPS, and IIS profiles. So from the profiles perspective, it's the same. So let me close all these things. This one, and I'll close this one. So things we have seen, I'm closing it. So we have seen the CS Proj, we have seen the dependencies, we have seen the properties, and we are seeing the app settings. So for the time being, we will be using app settings until session 5, and then we'll start using the secrets.json. I'm parking it for the secrets.json because I don't want to derail our current discussion. Okay, we'll come back and we'll use secrets.json. Then we'll compare why should we use app settings, or should we block it, put it in an ignore, and create a example.appsettings.json, so that the other team members who are using this project, they know that what all the configuration settings they need to do to execute this project locally. And also the DevOps team will know what additional things they have to configure. So that's the reason. So at this point of time, there is pretty much a less work for us. But another thing is, you want to see extra logging, you need to enable this. We'll come back to the logging in future session, but I'm parking it for now. So we have seen the CS Proj, we have seen the dependencies, we compared the properties or the launch settings, and then we compared, we discussed about the app settings, but we are going to discuss on the secrets JSON little later. Now comes the key piece, is the program.cs. So see that program.cs is pretty lean in the WebMT project, because in the previous episode where we saw, we created two things here. See that we created one with the .NET Web, that means MT project template, WebMT project template, and one with .NET Web API with minimal API. So guys, we are using web app MT template. That means it doesn't have anything. You can see that it doesn't even have the open API. Nothing is there. Just as simple as that, only with 3 lines, we are starting a minimal API. I've also compared the .NET tool with other things. Like the way we are exposing with 3 lines, we saw that Node.js also exposes the similar Node.js and Express APIs with the same thing. We can add ports and other things. I compared with that, and also the .NET tool with dry run. I compared with Angular CLI, which has got the dry run, which doesn't create the assets or resources, but it shows that what is that it's going to do it. Once you are satisfied, then you can click on yes, and it will go and create it. Now, if you come and see this with the other template, the Web API template with which we created, this has got a little bit of more things. Like it has got the service container. It has got the service container. It enabled the Swagger, and then it has got each development environment, HTTPS redirection, okay, and it has got a array of summaries, and it has got an API endpoint. Okay, you can see that it is I endpoint route builder, so route handler builder, but focus on that I endpoint route builder. This will come back in session 4, not immediately. Within that time, we'll gain a lot of knowledge. So with name and with OpenAPI, we'll park all these things at this point of time and run, and there's an internal record. So we wrote everything here, and we saw that how it is working. Let's spend 2 minutes, 1 minute each on checking this, how this execution is happening. So it directly goes, and we have seen different ways. We'll also come back and look at it a little later. That at this point of time, when we directly go to the route, you can see that route is hello world. It is spitting. That's fine. Let's come back because we didn't enable Swagger in this in this project. This is the Web API project. That was an empty API, and here we have minimal API, the Web API template. It has got the Swagger, and it is giving you the information also, because I don't want to derail today's session. We have a lot of topics to discuss, so let's see that. Okay, something is there. We can try it out and click on execute. It is giving us the information. That is fantastic. So now we just scratched only one part out of the 11 points discussion. So we just did a comparison. So what all the things which we compared? We compared the CS proj, we compared the dependencies, we saw the launch settings, we saw app settings, we compared the program.cs, right? So the next is dependency injection and comparison of service collection. This is a very good experiment, folks. So let me close this. Let me close this, and I'll create a new project in the same place. I call it as a 5th sample. I'll put it in this one. Now we have wide range of things to compare. Let's see that. I mean, this is my thought. Okay, I may be wrong. Again, I'm telling. Let's wait for the Web API templates. Come on. ASP.NET Core Web API. Okay. ASP.NET Core Web API. I click on next. I call it as sample. And let me drop it here, in this location. Click on next. Okay. Want to ensure that .NET 7 standard, so that we are comparing, and use controllers. If I uncheck, then it goes to the minimal API. That was the sample 4. The sample 4 is where we unchecked this one. That was it created. Rest everything I'm keeping it, and I'm creating it. Some of the topics I will be introducing now. Then again, we'll come back and do a deep dive a little later. So let's see. I just want to quickly check. Okay, cool. So now we have multiple things. We have sample 3, sample 4, and sample 5. Now what is that we are doing? We are comparing the dependency injection. As I was mentioning, the dependency injection is, I'm parking it for the session 3 or session 4. We'll do a deep dive. I will show you how the dependency injection work and what is this dependency injection. We'll do a deep dive here. Okay, so we'll do a deep dive here in session 3, and I created a separate project, and we'll get into the details of that now. Okay, let's wait on this one. Now the key thing what we are doing at this point of time is, let me close this so that I'll get an extra space here. We are doing dependency injection and comparison of collection services. Nothing we are doing, just we are comparing why it is called as the minimal API. It's not because we are writing everything in this program.cs. Okay, this is my independent analysis. I might be royally wrong, but this is my independent analysis. Okay, so at the point where app builder is there, at the place where app builder is there, let's put the debugger in all 3 places. In sample 3, app builder, and in sample 5, let's go to program.cs, the app builder. Okay, so we put the breakpoint at the app builder in sample 3, sample 4, and sample 5. It's all, folks, this is very, very important concept. Please understand. Okay, let's focus on this one. I hit this. Why do I need this? Let me close it. Now the builder has come in here. Now I go to the quick watch. I go to the quick watch, and okay, I go to the quick watch and do it here, and come and compare the services, number of services which it is having in this. So if I go, what is the number of services we are seeing? 13 services. Again, let me switch the debugger to this location. Let me stop that. So that will be exactly after the app has been constructed. That's the 5th one. So after the app object has been created. Okay, or else before also it is fine, but let's see. The first one is sample 3. We'll see that. So when this builder.build, when it is being constructed, let's go to the quick watch and let's see the services. And go into that. What is that you're seeing? There are 13 services which has been loaded. What all this, I'm calling it as out of the box or something which framework is injecting. So that means 13 kgs or 12 kgs of weights, 13 kgs you're lifting. So this is empty web API template, iLogger, host application, host lifetime, iConfiguration, iOptions. These are the 13. So remember. So let's put it here. Web app empty template has got 13 services. Well, let's see that. That is template sample 4. Now, when we compare this, the minimal API, again, let's go to this. Let's expand this. Now you see that what is the count of services? It has got 104 services. That means you are lifting 104 kgs. So this has got 104 services in its container. We'll come back and we'll do a deep dive, folks. This is just, I'm going to give you an information like my independent analysis, why minimal API is faster. Now this is the full-blown API. It's not minimal API, the web API with controllers. Now let's do the same analysis. What is this which is having in its service container? So when we go to this service container, we didn't even start anything. This is the service container. It has got 195 services. This is 195 services. You can get deep into the weeds, but let's hold on. This is web API with, this is 195 services in its container, right? So now you should understand that. Imagine a same athlete is running 100 meters. The first athlete is having 13 kgs in backpack. He will run 100 meters. And the same athlete is having 104 kgs in his backpack and is running 100 meters. The same athlete having 195 kgs in his backpack and running 100 meters. The same guy will run faster when he's having 13 kgs in his backpack. The same athlete, the same number of distance, but the weight, the service container is having more number of services. Definitely it needs more memory, or looking at, it has to load all these things. It has to handle when someone asks for the dependency injection, you need to go and pick it up. It takes time because less weight, less luggage, good travel. So something like that. You have less dependencies, less pipeline, you will be faster. So that's one point. Okay. So that's the comparison of services. We did that. Web app template is 13. This is 100 and change, and this is 195. So that means you're carrying less luggage with you. Definitely you'll run faster. Okay, that's one point. The second point is comparison of HTTP request pipeline. Let's do that. Now, here, what is that we are having as part of the HTTP request pipeline? So we'll pause for a minute. Here we have web application and web API builder, and the port which we have seen that last time we came here. This is not important. This is very, very important. So the middleware code analysis. See that. That's it. Here. This is called the pipeline, which you can see this pretty evident here in the controller. He clearly says that. And also, I think this guy should also tell that. The fourth sample. Yes, fourth sample. The third sample, if you see that, he's not configuring anything more than this direct route. Okay. But if you see the sample 4, they are configuring the request pipeline, and the full-blown controller is having more things added into the HTTP request pipeline. So let's take one quick minute. I've given you all these URLs, folks. Please go through it. Okay, I'll just tell you what is this request response pipeline. So each of these things are called as a middleware. We will write our own middleware, but as I was mentioning, we have entire 2023 to go through this. It's a microservices. It's a microservices series. It's not minimal API series. We are starting with minimal API. As I was mentioning, I've shown you this one. This is what we are going to achieve. We have started with courses. We will create a full-blown controller microservice which will have students and enrollment. We have an identity system. We have client. We have SQL project. We will be having server side Blazor or whatever it is. This is Angular 15. A lot of things are going to come. Entire year we will be busy. I hope people will join the journey. I'm sorry to derail it. Let's see that. Each one of these things are middlewares. You can see that. Adds a middleware, HTTP routing. Now this is another middleware. This is another middleware. This is another middleware. This is another middleware. So I'm not telling anything negative, but I just wanted to show you this. One more point. So you see that when you run the 100 meters, you have to jump hurdles. When you run the same 100 meters without hurdles, you will run faster. With hurdles, it might take 2 or 3 seconds. That is what is happening. When we compare between the minimal API and the API with controller, it has to process the middleware. I'm calling it as hurdles. I might be 100% wrong, but this is what I'm comparing with hurdles. Like you're running the 100 meters, but every 10 meters or 20 meters, you have to jump this one. So that we will compare with this one. So the request is coming. You have a first hurdle, then you come, you do some processing, the second hurdle, then you come here, the third hurdle. Imagine a scenario, there is a request, you do one processing and give the response like this. Step 1 and give the response. It will take, hypothetical numbers I'm giving, 10 seconds. Now you come to the first middleware, go to the second middleware and give the response. So 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Now you come to middleware 1, middleware 2, middleware 3, now it is 30 seconds. So as and when you process more middleware, it might take time. So that's my independent analysis. What is why minimal API is faster? Because you see this. We might not have this. We might not have HSTC. Let's compare that here. Yeah, it could be that. Oh, this one, HTTP redirection. We have it here. And the statics file, routing, CORS, authentication and authorization. We have authorization middleware and we have Swagger middleware. We have 2 middlewares, 3, 4, and map controller. Somewhere we will have the map controller. And we have the endpoint. So we might have 4 to 5 middlewares. We can write our custom middlewares also. Then we are reaching the endpoint. Now, if you go deeper in the middleware, how the things will happen, we'll get resource filters, we'll have a model binding, validation, action filter, exception filter, result filter. That's like deep into the weeds. But let's see this compare with the hurdles. You're running 100 meters, you have 1 or 2 hurdles. Like that, 1 or 2 processes we will be taking care. Now you compare the minimal API, the empty template. How many middlewares are there? It's an endpoint. It's a route endpoint. For guys, observe this. It's an endpoint. Straight into the point. Minimal API. And now this minimal API, it's also minimal API, but with lesser load. Here we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 middlewares. See that we have uSwagger, that's 1 middleware. uSwagger uses this 3 middlewares and 2 middleware, and this is the 3rd middleware. Then we are hitting straight to the endpoint. So let's put this. This is 3 middlewares. It's 3. And when we compare the controller, how many middlewares we are adding? Let's see that. We are adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we are having 5 middlewares. Now you yourself can answer why it is called as minimal API and why it is faster than the controller API. It's not that because we are writing everything in one file. According to me, this is what I might be wrong, guys. Again, I'm telling I might be wrong, but this is what I think. You are carrying less load on your backpack and you have less hurdles to do. Rest the endpoint, whatever the processing which we do is common. So that's how I think what is this minimal API and why it is faster. I've given you the URLs. You can do your own independent analysis, and please do let me know if I did some mistake in understanding what is this minimal API. And if you see that we are carrying on with the web empty template. Okay, so let's come back to our session. Let's go to the fourth point. So we did the comparison in the template, minimal API templates, empty as well as the web API. And we did, it's not a dependency injection, that's we are going to come back in the next session, but we did a comparison of the service collection between empty web app, the web app with the minimal API, and the full-blown web API with the controllers. It has got, here is the analysis. We have 13, 104, 195 services, and the middlewares, we didn't see any middleware. Here we saw 3, here we saw 5. So that means this minimal API will have 3 hurdles, this will have 5 hurdles. I'm assuming, because that's what we are adding the middleware, and we are seeing that a request should pass through all these things and then send it. See this, it has to jump. And we have seen it here. You process one middleware and send it to the next, send it to the next. That means if you have 3 middlewares, 1, 2, 3, and then send the response. If you have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and send the response. So that's the analysis which we did it. So let's come back to our business. So the next thing for this topic is the parameter binding in minimal API. So the parameter binding is the process of converting the request data into strongly typed parameters. Okay, one second. So you see that we will be sending a lot of things, and so here is the Postman collection. It has got the host URL, it doesn't have anything, and it has got multiple endpoints. This is there in the solution, guys. I added it. So if you see here, we don't have any route parameters. Here is the route parameters. These are first 4 hello world endpoints which we created. And you can see that we are creating this minimal API, and we are not sticking to write everything in one file. We are using some of the best practices to move things to its own thing, its own class. So we have DTOs, we have entities, we have separate seed class, we have context, there will be repository layers, there will be business logic layers. A lot of things will come. We will change the shape of this. We don't even recognize. And at the end of the day, if you see that, this itself will be maximum 10 lines, and everything will be in different projects. We'll come back. It's a long journey, but we started here. So the first point is this parameter binding. So it has got its intelligence to get it the things and assign it. So other way, we can explicitly specify that where should we look at it. That means I'll give you the first example. The first example is in this one. In this request, you're saying that API uses U101. U101 is the route parameter, and name is Srivaru, that is the query parameter. So it will strip off those values and assign it properly. But just if you want your colleague or someone to understand this, it's better to mark it specifically. So what are we telling? We're telling that this is the endpoint. If you see that, the endpoint is /API/users /ID. So you're seeing that /API/users/ID. So that's the route. Okay, that is the route. And we are saying that ID is this one. Anything whichever is coming should be ID. Where you should take it from? You should take it from the route parameter. That means whatever we specify here will be stuffed into this one. And from query, we are saying that, hey, there will be a query called name. Whatever is coming, assign it. So we are saying that, okay, for the way this value for this variable, strip it off from query. For the value for this variable, strip it off from route. Okay, so let's see this. I'll start this. Here's the one. So we are sending it. It hits the debugger. See, U101. And this is Sriva. We got that. Now, if you make U111, you send it U111. So that's one thing. And the second one is a new thing which we are seeing is, now here we are not passing any route parameters or any query, but we are passing the value in the body. So now in the second example, you can see that we are saying that take this DTO from the body and transform it. You saw that it is coming the ID as well as the name. Those things are coming in from here. So if you see that I change this to ID, you can see the ID is 111. So it's good practice if multiple people are working. I mean, everyone definitely knows that this is what it is, but to tag it, like where these values are coming in. We might write the code now, and after 2-3 months, we ourselves will forget whether it is coming from the route parameter or from the query parameter. Okay, that was the thing which I wanted to discuss. So route parameter, from query string, from route, from body, from services. We'll come back to that, from services. Now let's discuss about the base entity. Now what is this base entity? If you see in real time, every record has to be uniquely identified, like a row identifier, like employee ID in an organization or roll number in a school. So every record has to be uniquely identified. Okay, so let's take the course ID. The course ID is C101. That's the course ID. But the record which has been inserted in the database, it will have a separate ID, like a row ID. So this is very common for all the entities which we store, as well as when it is created, who created it, when it is modified, who modified it. These 5 fields and more fields in different businesses or the processes, it could have more fields which are very common to all the entities. And imagine a scenario, for us it doesn't make sense. The course will have those 5 fields and student will have those 5 fields, and the enrollment has got those 5 fields. The same 5 fields are getting repeated in 3 different entities. So instead we put those entities which are common to all the entities in our domain, and will move that to the base, and we'll use that base as a parent class. So now what is happening is the course ID. This is also GUID. It could be string or integer according to your project requirement, but I take GUID for all those IDs. So this ID, the base entity ID, is I'm treating it as a record ID, and this ID is to uniquely identify that course within the table. Okay, so this is what it is. We have base entity. I told you the logic why it is needed, and we have the course entity. What is the course ID? Course name, its duration, and it is its description. So we saw 2 of these topics. What is base entity? The need of base entity, and the the course entity. So in this scenario, we started with minimal API. We took one base entity and one course. And imagine a scenario. This is one microservice. It only supports course. And there is full-blown web API with the controllers. It will support students and student enrollment. Now we have 2 different microservices. Now here, I can add these 5 fields into this, because this microservice is dealing with a single entity. So I don't need to create a base entity. Now imagine a microservice 2, what we are talking about, which has got 2 entities. It has got student and it has got enrollment. So there it makes sense to create a base entity, and student entity inherits from base, and the enrollment entity inherits from base. So it all depends upon, do you need to follow these principles? I don't know. You start creating, add everything into the course. Then you create one more entity, duplicate it, no harm. Then you identify the patterns. Hey, I have this 20 fields, I have this 20 fields in entity B, 20 fields in entity A. So there are 10 fields which are common in entity A and entity B. Okay, it might be coincidence. Keep it. In entity C, again, you have 45 fields. The same 10 fields are common. So in entity A, entity B, and entity C, you're having 10 entities, sorry, 10 fields which are common. And you identified that rest of the entities which is going to come into this project will also have these 10 entities common. So now it makes sense to move this to the parent and use it across. So something you do it once you identify the pattern. I'm not stopping you from doing the best practices right from the day one. Do it right first time. You can do that way also. Some of the times what happen is, in this case, I split into the base entity and the course entity. I'm assuming that I might not get any other entities to deal with here in this simple microservice. So for me, it's like simply I created it. I'm not telling it is wrong, but it's a best practice to do it. But think, even if you're not doing best practices at the right first time, but when you see the pattern or the code smells, then you refactor it. Okay, that's how I deal with. Now see this, just enough entity framework core. Right now we are dealing with the right now we are dealing with entity framework core. So see this. Let me close all these things. I have a fellow speaker. There's a interrupt 21H. so so what happened is, here if you see the project CS proj, here we have the entity framework and the in memory. So I'm not against the code first approach, but mostly I love that the database is a separate concern. So that's my thought process. I might be wrong, but if you see that in the organization, whatever we are going to do, I have the SQL project a separate one. I mean, we will do it in session 6 or 7. I don't know when we are going to do it, but it will be a separate thing. It's not like a code first approach. It's like you have a database, and deploying the database is a separate concern, I think. So API can use either the ADO.NET or Dapper or EF Core or any ORM to talk to it. So API is concerned about interacting with the database, spitting the content out. So creation of the database, deploying of those database tables, pre-populating the content which is needed is a separate concern. So let's take it in a separate repository. So that's the two packages which we used: Entity Framework Core. So this is ORM, and this is for the in-memory. It's just like our starting point. We're starting with this, and then we'll move towards the SQL Server. Let's see the polyglot data store, or we might convert into the courses into Cosmos DB or something. I don't know how the things will go, but we started with this in memory. Let's see, if possible, we'll put it in Cosmos DB or some other place. Let's think about crossing the river when river comes. Next one is about the dependency injection. So this is, again, we are just touching the surface. We are not going to discuss anything more. But the thing is that we will come back and do a deep dive in next session. So I have, one second. Okay. As I was mentioning, this is just enough infrastructure for EF Core 7. Okay. We just created a DbContext. Okay, let's see that. This is how we inject the DbContext into the services. Okay, how do you create this DbContext? You will expand from DbContext, and it will have a constructor. It takes the DbContext options of this class, and you can do more there. Okay, and on configuring is the one which we are not going to discuss. I mean, the connection string perspective. Okay, we will speak about these things. Very simple. Like we extend this DbContext. We have a constructor, and the SQL DB options pass it to the base. And we'll have this public property, that's the courses. You will see different ways to do this. You will see this other syntax also. So I'm using the fat arrow and the set that initializes. You can use either syntax. And the model creating, we got the model builder, and we are doing a apply configuration. So I have all the URLs. Let me drop it over here, which will help you folks to grab and this modeling ensure created. Let's spend one minute time in this one, creating and configuring a model. Okay, so this will help us to do those things. And what we are basically doing is this one, apply configuration. So when you apply the configuration, that's where it uses this one. So let me come back over here. So here, this apply configuration, you can see that model builder, apply configuration, and identity type configuration. It applies configuration that is defined in an identity type instance. So if you see that new course data, inside this new course data, we have expanded it from identity type configuration of course type, and this interface will have the configure method where we will populate. Right now we are populating 2 records. By the time we move further, we will have 5 to 6 records with its images. We'll do that. Okay, so I put all the database related in a folder called persistence. Eventually this is going to move into its own library class. And let's define GetAllCourses. The next step is we'll define the GetAllCourses. I'm sorry, I missed one step. Under the data folder, we have course. Yeah, I think we discussed it. I didn't miss any step. Sorry. So here we have hello world, and we have user endpoints, which is the demonstration of parameter binding. And another thing is we are exposing our first endpoint, the course endpoint. And here, the DbContext, which has been defined inside the persistence, the DbContext, which has been defined inside the persistence folder, we are saying that, hey, give me a copy of the DbContext. How is that happening? That is happening from this. You're loading it. Now this is a good exercise to come and revisit. This is the good exercise to come and revisit the service collection. We are not going to discuss anything about the dependency injection. That I'm parking it to the next session where we'll do a deep dive into that. Now you see that. If you come and see the services, here the count is 94. See that? You have hosting, you have options and logger factory and your console formatter, that, and you can do a deep dive, web hosting, high hosting, application lifetime, diagnostics, high HTTP context factory, middleware factory, startup, and you scroll through, you have endpoint data source, lot of things, and at last you should see the school DbContext. Saw that? So the same one where we said that add this has been loaded as into the service container. I'll do a deep dive into that, how it is coming in. But when you add this into the endpoint, so what you can do is you can mark it from services or you can ignore. Both will work. But just wanted to give you that. What is that we are doing here? Let me put a debugger. Let me put a debugger here. And I want to save this. I don't want to save this. I'll come here and I do get courses. So you see that the DB context is properly populated, and it has got a database, it has got a model, everything is here. Okay. Now when I do continue, it's a simple link, simple DbCourses to list, the DB context, and this is a DB set, and we are doing to list, and we are doing an await because this is an async function, fat arrow function. So it's doing it, and we are seeing that results dot okay. We'll come back about the results in the next episode, but as of today, let's understand something is happening. So let's see the negative things also. What will happen if you don't inject this? Because right now we have added the dependency into the service collection, and when we request to give us a copy of the SQL DB context, the dependency is getting resolved because it has got a container. It knows that the SQL DB is one of the dependency in the service collection. It is resolving it, and it is giving us a copy of the DB context. Lifetime and other things we'll discuss, but this is a fundamental. Like you create, you drop it into the service collection. That means within the service container, you create a dependency, or you add a dependency. I'm sorry, you add a dependency there. And when you request a dependency, so that's when what will happen is it resolves, it checks the service container whether this has been already added. If it is added, then it resolves that. So let's see the negative thing where we didn't add and we are asking it. Let's see what it will happen. It will definitely throw error, but it's not a suspense movie saying that what will happen. It says that, see, no service type of school API persistence school DB context has been registered. First you register into the service collection container, then it will be able to resolve. You don't register, then it will not be able to resolve the dependency and give you. You understood? Imagine a scenario: you have a bank account and you don't deposit money. You take an ATM card to ATM and swipe it, you'll get a declined transaction. How we got it? So for you to swipe the card, you need to deposit the money. It's as simple as that, right? You have a service container, the service collection container. You have to register the dependency. Step one. Once you register the dependency, you go and ask for that dependency anywhere. Now framework knows that you already registered this type. It will resolve the dependency and it will give it to you. You don't register, you will not get it. You don't deposit the money into your bank account and you swipe the card in your ATM machine, you will get a declined transaction. That's what we have seen, the declined transaction here. I didn't register and I was asking for it. It will not be able to resolve it. Okay, so that's the topic. We did it. Okay, next one is seed data. This is just a stopgap. And again, this is also different thoughts, school of thoughts. So you see that there is something known as ensure created method. So ensure that the database for the content exists. So what does it do that? Okay, it ensures that those tables are there, and if at all you want to populate something, you do it. Okay, so after reading a couple of articles, I dropped it here in this one. And this is what the service provider it is resolving. I'm just made a comment that I need to remove that. Maybe in fourth or fifth session, once we complete, we will have our own SQL mechanism. As I was showing this organization, here we will have a SQL project where we go and deploy it, or it could be something else. We will see that how to create it, but not within the API, or this microservices will not worry about the database. That is a separate concern. We will see how to take care, but not here. So just for the time being, I'm just seeding it from here. Okay. So now everything is here. There you go. We're coming in here. Okay. So folks, please go grab this, get into this. You have a session 1, you have session 2, and get into this organization. I'll give this one also. So please go grab it and play, and also get into the .NET Learners House. This one, .NET Learners House YouTube channel, where we have 26 plus videos. Watch whichever is of your interest. And the minimal API series, like session 1 and session 2 is here. Session 3 is planned. And similarly, .NET on AWS, that's another series. And I'm going to start AZ204 hands-on lab series, maybe starting next week. Please keep a watch on this meetup group. So all the labs which is there, we will be working from next week. If not max, next to next week, we'll start monthly 2 episodes of those. Okay. I think you guys have learned something new, and please watch the videos, and also do the hands-on, so that will give you enough confidence. So there is another episode of AWS next week. Hope to see you there, and please let me know if you want to see some new stuff. Year 2023 is a micro series year, and .NET 7. Let's redo most of the stuff in year 2024 when .NET 8 comes. And thank you so much for joining on Sunday, and see you next week.